Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Casual Criminalist, the show where one of my writers, in this case Matt, thank you Matt, has written me a script. Joel Guy Jr., every parent's worst nightmare. Oh god. I got kids, I don't like these ones where it's like, I'm like all smiley and stuff now, but I know it's going to get horrible because this is a true crime show. And it's like, oh, I don't like it. And also, I'm so tired right now. My kid was up, I don't know how long last night because I didn't check the time, but it was like, why are you up? Why are you awake? Why are you doing this? She'd be like, Dad, I slept well. And I'd be like, no, you didn't. You can't possibly have. But even still, it's like, slightly annoyed? Yes. Very tired? Yes. Love my kids? Yes. The format of the show, if you're new here, I've never read this before. We're going to read it and explore it together. Let's go. Although I do not have children of my own, I've been reliably informed that most parents, outside of the horrific ones that are usually featured on this channel, want to see their children succeed in life. Yeah, that'd be nice. I have a running joke with my wife. They'd be like, yeah, it'd be good. I mean, if our daughter became president.
I love Pawnee, and I want to make it even better. Better schools, safer streets, and a more progressive tax on residential properties.
At some point I have to stop with these jokes because eventually she'll understand and then I'll be like, no, it's just a joke. And she'll be like, well, you give me a complex about not being successful. So, you gotta stop. Because many parents view their children as an extension or a continuation of themselves, it's as natural as wanting to see themselves succeed. But the word success can take on many different meanings. For some parents, nothing short of becoming a doctor or a lawyer will satisfy. But for most, seeing their child happy, healthy, and pursuing something they love is enough. They take pride in their children's accomplishments and will do everything they can to help them along the way, but they do not pressure them unduly. Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. I think you're right. Of course I want my kids to be successful. More than successful though, I'd like them to be happy. That's like number one. What I'd really like them to be is successful and happy. That would be a win, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, however, for some children, no matter how reasonable their parents' requests are, no matter how much support and encouragement is offered, no matter how much love is given, something simply goes wrong. For those children, the term bad seed comes to mind. They are the ones who, despite the best efforts of everyone around them, cannot be helped. These type of children are every parent's worst nightmare. Oh, I see. Oh, I expected this to be the other way around, like every parent's worst nightmare. I expected it to be about like someone who's killing children rather than, oh my God, the children's just... Because obviously we've had this debate and this discussion many times on this show. Like the fact is a discussion when it's just me. But like I discuss with myself is that, you know, there's nature versus nurture. Like some stuff is just inherently genetic to people and some stuff is about how they're raised. Either way, it's the parent's responsibility, but sometimes you just get a genetic shake where it's like, oh, you're just a psycho. Okay, you just like torturing animals. Do either parents like torturing animals? No. What happens? I don't think, like, I've got kids. One is 3, one is 2. And they seem very normal and happy and smiley. One's more smiley than the other one's a bit more serious. But it's like, they both seem very normal. I don't know what age you can tell whether someone's a psycho, but I don't think so. Fingers crossed. The Guy family. Joel Michael Guy and Lisa Guy were married in Louisiana in 1983. At the time of their union, Michael had already got 3 very young daughters from a previous marriage. Their names were Chandis, pronounced Sh-A-Nudis. Really? I'm just going to go with Chandis because... Matt, I'm not really sure. Like, you've given me a CH/A/N-dis. That's not really... Like, what? What? How am I supposed to pronounce that? Michelle and Angela. Joel Michael, who often simply went by Michael, worked as a pipeline engineer and was described by those who knew him as a hard-working, down-to-earth man and a loving father who would help anyone in need whenever possible. Likewise, Lisa was a hard-working mother who, despite not being biologically related to Michael's daughters, treated them as her own. All 3 girls were loved and never once made to feel like leftovers from a previous marriage. Effectively, as soon as Lisa married Michael, she became her mother, and the girls quickly grew to love her as much as they loved their father. Well, this all sounds very nice, doesn't it? Throughout the couple's marriage, Michael and Lisa's lives were described as near perfect. They loved each other fiercely and fought hard to give their girls a good life filled with opportunities, and after being together for several years, the pair decided to have their first and only biological child together, a son that Michael named after himself. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was born on March the 13th, 1988. He's about the same age as me, year younger. And as soon as Lisa laid eyes on him, she claimed to know that her son was special, and she was right. Joel Jr. was a very intellectually gifted child who excelled in school, scoring near perfect marks during his time at the Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts. As a teenager, he was accepted into George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where he studied for a year before returning to Louisiana to enroll in the medical program at Louisiana State University, a research college known for being one of the most prestigious in the country. He had high hopes of becoming a plastic surgeon, and Michael and Lisa were beyond excited for him. Yeah, okay, sounds like good kid. Or at least a very smart kid.
Today's video is brought to you by one of my absolute favorite sponsors, and that is Vessi. Vessi have been a sponsor for years, and since Vessi have sponsored me, I have worn pretty much nothing else. Look, I've got the nice clean new ones on the table, but these are my regular Vessis that I've been wearing. They do need a little bit of a clean, but cleaning is easy with Vessis. In fact, these are their boardwalk ones, and summer is kind of ending, so I'm going to go back to more wintry Vessis. But seriously, I wear Vessi all year round. It's kind of autumn now. It rains. My feet always dry because Vessis are made with something called Dymatex, which is not water resistant. It is waterproof. Like, you could dip this like up to here in water, and it would be absolutely fine. There's some B-roll footage of me walking in a river with my Vessi boots, the Chelsea boots, which come up to here. And it's crazy. They're just fully waterproof. It was winter, so my feet got cold in the river, but then I take the shoe off and it's like socks, completely dry. They provide unparalleled comfort, making them the most comfortable footwear that you will ever experience. And right now they've got a brand new design. This is the Vessi Soho shoe. As I said, 100% waterproof thanks to Dymatex, and they're easy to slip on. They've got these laces. You don't have to do your laces up. That's so 20th century. Just slip them on and you're good to go. They're incredibly comfortable, like all Vessi shoes are. No laces, like it's Vessi. But what if it's not just your feet that need protection? Meet the Overcast jacket. It's also 100% waterproof with a stretchy shell that adapts to your every move. Soft fleece lining keeps you cozy. Adjustable features protect you from unpredictable weather. So, what's the deal for you? Head to vessi.com/TCC for an exclusive 15% off your order. And guess what? Free shipping for Canada, US, Australia, Japan, Taiwan, KR and SGP, they're all the abbreviations. I'm guessing that's Korea and Singapore, but I'm not sure. If you're in those countries, you will know. Trust me, Vessi's got your back, rain or shine. So stay dry, stay comfy with Vessi. And now back to today's video.
Additionally, while Joel Jr. was finding success, so were Candice, Michelle, and Angela. They were all living on their own, and Michelle was even married and provided Michael and Lisa with grandchildren to love and spoil, as only grandparents can. By the 2010s, after decades of hard work and sacrifice in service of their children, Michael and Lisa's nest was empty, and their child-raising days were behind them. With this in mind, the couple sold their large family home, packed their bags, and moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where they purchased a 2-story home on Golden View Lake in the Hardin Valley community. Michael had grown up in Tennessee and had chosen to return in order to be closer to his aging parents, who then lived in Seguinsville, a community just over an hour northeast of Knoxville. This is all sounding very lovely. Where is this going? Who's the nightmare child? What happens? At this time, all 3 of their daughters were also living locally as well. Michelle was also in Knoxville, and Candice and Angela were in Kingsport. This new home, although it was smaller than their old home, was located within a nice neighborhood and had plenty of spare bedrooms for visitors. For work, Michael and Lisa found jobs at Jacobs Engineering in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Michael is an engineering designer, Lisa is a human resources administrator. In the evenings and on weekends, the pair would spend quality time together and take their dog, Jake, on walks. Everything was going well for them, with the exception of one small problem. You see, while all 3 of Michael's daughters were prospering as adults, Joel Jr., who I'll simply be referring to Joel for the remainder of today's episode, was not. Wait, he seemed to be doing really well. Wasn't he super smart and then he went off to become a plastic surgeon? That's like quite a career path, isn't it? As a student living and studying on campus in Louisiana, Joel had been relying on his parents to finance his entire life for him since birth. They paid for his schooling, his housing, his food, his car, his textbooks, his cell phone, and everything else he needed or wanted. Which, like, I don't know, I'm kind of for, like, kids should, you should have a job on the side, like, at least a part-time job. You should at least pay for a little bit of things. Like, I don't know, I think that's pretty healthy. I had a job, like, my parents paid for a lot of things, but I also had a job where I earned a little bit of extra money on the side.
I got my first job when I was 9, worked at a sheet metal factory. In 2 weeks, I was running the floor. Child labor laws are ruining this country.
At first, Michael and Lisa had been fine with providing Joel some financial support because they believed it allowed him to focus on his grades and graduate without the burden of student debt. Oh my god, they got some money. If they're paying for him to go through medical school in the United States to become a surgeon, isn't that like... I remember that when Scrubs, the TV show Scrubs, they were talking about, they had like $250,000 in debt or something insane. And that was like, 10 years ago? However, the arrangement had long overstayed its welcome. Joel's first year in university had started in 2006 when he was 18, but by 2014, a full 8 years later, he had still not graduated. Shouldering these extra expenses for such an extended period had been a huge financial burden for Michael and Lisa, and had Michael not held such a high-paying job, their family would have quickly found themselves underwater. This was a problem that Michael and Lisa did not have a solution to, because whenever they mentioned money to Joel, he would become angry and dismissive of their concerns. Tell you what happens is you're like, hey Joel, yeah, what's up, Dad? No more money, bitch. Or I'm cutting your allowance in half, Joel. Get a fucking job. He also never held a job, never shown any interest in finding a job, and had never thought twice about accepting their money. Additionally, making the situation even worse, the longer the arrangement went on, the worse it became as Joel spent his parents' money like it was his own. He didn't hold back when purchasing things he wanted, and by 2016, his expenses had grown so numerous that Lisa began sending her entire bi-weekly paycheck directly to Joel's bank account. She hoped that by doing this, Joel would focus on his schooling and graduate sooner rather than later, but what she and Michael did not know is that their efforts were all in vain. Over 500 miles away from their home in Knoxville, Joel had been purposefully dragging out his education as long as possible in order to keep receiving their support, and by the time he was 28, he dropped out of LSU entirely. He's like some Van Wilder shit. How long have you been at university? It's like 10 years, dude! Where is it? 2016? Oh my god, dude, you've been in university forever. He was using their money to rent an off-campus apartment for himself and a roommate. Eventually, Joel planned to return to school, but he did not have plans to join the workforce. As far as Joel was concerned, his parents' money was his money, and he had no reason to worry about completing his education or finding a job because their money would always be there to fall back on. I so hope, I don't know, like, I don't want to, my kids, this isn't going to be their situation. It's going to be like, yo, you're going to have to go get a job. And it's like, why, Dad? You have money? And I'll be like, yes. I have money. And yes, I will share some with you, but not so you don't have to do anything. Understand?
I found my money!
You need to relax.
Unsurprisingly, this mindset put Joel at odds with his parents on more than one occasion because despite what his spending habits would suggest, Michael and Lisa were not rich. They had decent money and a sizable safety net, but they were still average, middle-class Americans who worked normal 9-to-5 jobs. Joel knew this, but it did not change his attitude toward money. Joel had even gotten himself into some unspecified legal trouble at one point in his early 20s, and his parents had been forced to refinance their home to help pay for it. Unspecified legal trouble. Joel, what are you up to? This is an episode of The Casual Criminalist. I want to know what your unspecified legal trouble is, Joel. Although this was challenging enough, Joel's problems with his family ran even deeper. Starting when he was a child, Joel had been a socially inept loner who rarely got along with his sisters, and this problem, like the money problem, had only worsened over time. As a teenager, Joel's behavior could be dismissed as normal teen angst, but as a fully grown adult, he could only be described as rude and arrogant, someone who showed little interest in having a genuine relationship with anyone in his family. There's got to be a point, bro. Like, where your parents are just like cut you off, right? I've seen movies. Like, I don't know, I've never been enough of a dick for my parents to be like, hey, we're cutting you off. Because, I don't know, then I became an adult and then just starting, paying for myself. But also, even when I was reliant on my parents, I was nice to them. Not because they were giving me money, but because they're my parents. But also, like, come on. What are you doing? Just cut him off, Michael, Lisa. Just cut him off. Be like, no, you dick. Go get a job, you bum. I don't think that would be bad parenting. I think that's good parenting, right? To be like, yo, you got to, get to do something with your life. I probably wouldn't say, get a job, you bum.
Get out of the street, you f***ing bum.
But I'd be like, yo, listen, son. Listen, daughter. You've got to get a job, I'm afraid. I know it's sad, but we all have to contribute and make money. Michael and Lisa recognized their son's many problems, but they had no idea how to fix them. Every time they mentioned money, Joel became enraged, and if they decided to cut Joel off financially, he would likely stop talking to them altogether. That, Michael knew, would break Lisa's heart. Look, Lisa, if the only reason he's talking to you is because you're giving him money, that's a little bit weird, isn't it? However, even though his genuine love has a limit, and after allowing his son to mooch off him for over a decade, Michael saw that Joel was, for lack of a better term, a complete loser. He knew he needed to find a way to get his son back on the right track. Fortunately, in 2016, a bittersweet opportunity arose in the form of a layoff when Michael, who was then 61 years old, was let go from his engineering job in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. When this happened, instead of trying to find a new job with less than 4 years to go before retirement began, Michael looked over the family's finances and realized that he and Lisa had saved enough money to retire early. Well, that's nice. This would prevent him from having to undergo the nearly impossible task of finding suitable employment at his age, while also giving him and Lisa extra time to enjoy the fruits of their lifetimes of labor. Lisa, who was then 55 years old, was overjoyed by the idea. Yeah, my parents retired early, and it's really nice. Like, are they of retirement age now? Yeah, I think they're just about of retirement age now, but they retired ages ago. And it's like really nice. They just don't have to work there. And they go about their lives, they do all these interesting things. And I'm like, yeah, good for you. Do it. I remember them looking over the money and being like, yeah, I think we can do this. And then they did. And I'm like, that's nice. That year, in mid-2016, Michael contacted a local realtor to list their home on Golden View Lake. They were planning to move to an even smaller home in Sirgoinsville, Tennessee, to be closer to the rest of Michael's family during their retirement, and in almost no time, they had a buyer lined up. Things were moving quickly, and Lisa was eager to put in a 2-week notice at her job. But before they could do anything, they first needed to address the Joel problem. In late October of 2016, Michael and Lisa notified several members of their family via text message of their plans to retire early. They said that the closing date on their old home was scheduled for December the 13th, less than 3 months away. They would give them just enough time to move into their new home before Christmas. Following this message, they also revealed that they planned to cut Joel off before officially signing the papers. After 10 years of complacency, it was time for some tough love. Yes, let's go. Wait, this is an episode of The Casual Criminalist. Is Joel gonna murder them or some shit?
Oh, God.
Oh, God, I hope not, Joel. Don't do that. They're your parents. They gave you 10 years of money, Joel. You bummed around pretending to go to medical school while just living in an apartment and being a loser. It was time to let Joel sink or swim, and that's exactly what Michael was prepared to do. He also made it clear to everyone else in the family that they should refuse to provide Joel with financial support as well. If this plan was going to work, he said, they all needed to be unified and stand firm in their decision. The family, including Lisa, agreed that it was time. However, even after coming to an agreement, Michael and Lisa struggled to approach the subject with Joel. Michael suggested that they wait until closer to December to reveal their big plans. Oh, Michael just ripped the band-aid off, damn it. Just be like, Joel, sit down. Got some news. By then, things would already been in motion and harder to argue against, but Lisa knew that giving Joel a heads up sooner rather than later would be beneficial to everyone. They wouldn't have to hide their plans from him any longer, and more importantly, Joel would have time to get his life together and find a job, a very difficult task for a 28-year-old who had never been employed. You can get any job. I mean, no, not to be dismissive, because obviously unemployment is the thing, but it's like, yeah, okay, well, guess what? You're starting 10 years later than everyone else. Go flip burgers or clean toilets or something like that. The problem is he's a dick, so it's going to be it's going to be hard for him to keep that job, right? Because if you're a bit of a dick, it's like, you're just going to be like, yeah, sorry, it's not working out, is it, Joel? Dick.
Why don't you get a job? If you're so hungry, why don't you get a job?
That month, a few days after notifying the rest of the family, Michael and Lisa called Joel to inform him of their decision. The conversation did not go as expected. They'd anticipated Joel would lose his temper and go on an expletive-filled rant, but that's not what happens. And while we don't know exactly how this conversation went, Michael and Lisa said later that Joel had taken it surprisingly well. They'd laid out their plan, explained their reasoning, and he had accepted it. He wasn't happy about it, but he would make do. Perhaps, Michael thought, he and Lisa had not given Joel enough credit. Where is this going, Matt? Like, what is going to happen? Like, in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, is he going to murder them? Like, so he can get their inheritance money or whatever, or something. Like, is he just like, okay, well, I guess time has come. It's time for me to murder you. But it doesn't seem like, oh God. Thanksgiving Day. The first time that Michael and Lisa saw Joel in person after their conversation was late November of 2016, during the family's yearly Thanksgiving dinner, and this reunion was strange to say the least. As was tradition, Michael and Lisa invited their entire family into their home to celebrate, and Candice, Michelle, and Angela were each in attendance, as were Candice and Michelle's husbands and children, Michael's sisters, Renee and Robin, and Michael and Lisa's dog, Jake. In the kitchen, Lisa and a few others were preparing food while Michael and the rest of the family were outside in the garage, where they set up a temporary space to accommodate the large number of guests that day. For the Guy family, Thanksgiving was an informal event, and the extra space allowed their grandchildren and Jake to run and play freely while the adults smoked cigarettes and sipped alcohol together after dinner. As mentioned earlier, Joel was also in attendance. He had driven in from Louisiana the prior day and was staying inside one of Michael and Lisa's spare bedrooms. This was not unusual, as Joel normally visited during the holidays, but what was unusual was Joel's behavior towards the rest of his family. According to Michelle, Joel was not normally the type of person to socialize at family get-togethers because he actively disliked most members of his family, including her. It's like, oh, he doesn't socialize. Why not? He doesn't like us. Oh, okay. Your family, you should smile and pretend to be like, hey! This Thanksgiving, however, Joel was uncharacteristically eager to talk with and be around everyone. From the time Michelle, their husband, and the children arrived at 10:30 a.m. that morning until they left at 8 p.m. that evening, Joel stayed around the family, telling them stories of his time in college and attempting to be friendly in his own awkward way. This was especially unexpected considering how he had just been cut off. Like Michael and Lisa, the rest of the family kept expecting him to cause a scene or act out in some way, but it never happened. Even stranger, Michelle said, Joel had also attempted to interact with her children, which he had never done before. At one point, he went upstairs to his bedroom, dug out some of his old toys, and then distributed them to be played with. Michelle thought this was odd because up until that day, Joel had never even made an effort to learn his own nephew's names. How? You don't have to learn them, you just told them, and then you're like, oh yeah, okay, Bob and Betty, easy, done. Whatever the names were. They're just the names of the kids. I didn't have to spend time memorizing my nieces and nephews' names. It's just like, I just know them, don't I? At several points while her children and Joel were playing together in Joel's room, Michelle went upstairs to make sure there was nothing strange going on. Despite how Joel was acting, she couldn't help being suspicious of him because his behavior that day was such a far cry from the Joel she had always known. Inside his bedroom, she noticed that the room adjoining the bedroom was extraordinarily clean, something else that was unusual when Joel stayed over, and that Joel seemed uncomfortable with her being in there. Joel, what are you up to? What does this mean? The entire time she was in the room, Joel stood beside her, watching her carefully, which made her uncomfortable. Oh my god, Joel, you sound like such a weirdo, mate. Another thing that Michelle noticed during her visit was Joel's car. That morning, she had brought several baskets of laundry with her to Michael and Lisa's home because the washer and dryer at her house needed to be serviced. She planned to wash and dry some of her family's clothing throughout the day, but when she backed her car into the driveway to unload her laundry hampers, she noticed that Joel's car, which was parked adjacent to hers in the driveway, had several large plastic totes sitting in the back seat and trunk. When she asked Joel about them later, Joel simply avoided the question. Michelle knew that Joel's overnight items were in his suitcase, which was already unpacked and inside the spare bedroom, so she wasn't sure what else he would have brought with him from Louisiana. She was curious, but didn't press the issue. Oh my god, Joel. What? This is beginning to get so dark. Like, is he gonna... I don't want to speculate. Let's just see where this goes. After the family dinner was over, Candice, Michelle, Angela, and the rest left the home, but Joel stayed behind. He said he would be returning to Louisiana the next day and after helping his father transport a few things to the new home. By this point, Michael and Lisa had less than 3 weeks to be moved out, and with Thanksgiving over, it was officially crunch time. The next day, on Friday, November 25th at around 1 p.m, Michael's sister Renee spoke with Michael over the phone. He told her that he and Joel had transported the family's boat to their new home and planned to return to Knoxville soon. Later that day, she called and texted him, but her multiple messages went unanswered. Over the next 2 days, Saturday the 26th and Sunday the 27th, both Renee and Candice once again attempted to reach out to Michael, but he did not answer, and their calls were never returned. This struck Renee as unusual because Michael almost always returned her calls within a few hours, but for Candice, it was beyond unusual because Sunday the 27th was her birthday, and Michael always called her on her birthday. He had not even texted her. A little disappointed, Candice told herself that as unlikely as it was, the day must have simply slipped his mind because he was so preoccupied with the move. She told herself that she would call back the next day, but this also went unanswered. Golden View Lane. On the morning of November the 28th, 2016, the Knox County Sheriff's Office, or KCSO, received a call from a woman named Jennifer Whited. This was Lisa Guy's direct supervisor at Jacobs Engineering in Oak Ridge. In the call, Jennifer said that Lisa had not shown up for work in the morning as scheduled, something that was exceptionally out of character for her, and that she had not responded to any of the text messages or calls that Jennifer had made that morning to check if she was all right. Even more suspicious, Jennifer said, that particular Monday was not an ordinary workday because it was one of Lisa's last workdays. Lisa's retirement day was quickly approaching, and she, Jennifer, and several of the other co-workers had planned to have an extended lunch that morning at a local restaurant to celebrate. Lisa had missed that lunch without even texting them a heads up. Half an hour later, Officer Stephen Ballard of the KCSO arrived outside Michael and Lisa's home. He approached the front door on foot and noted that unlike how the home had been the previous week during Thanksgiving, its garage door was shut and its doors and windows were all locked tight. There was a real estate sign near the edge of the road that showed the house was pending sold, and both Michael and Lisa's vehicles were parked in the driveway. Oh my god, Joel, have you murdered your parents? Have you, it's gonna be extremely obvious it's you. Michelle was like, it's weird, Joel's being weird. Did he murder them? Because they cut him off. Bro. When Ballard approached the home, he noted that the front door's doorknob was missing. Directly underneath the door's locked deadbolt, there was an empty round hole that allowed him to peer inside. When he looked through the hole, he noticed the foyer's lights were on, but everything else inside appeared normal. When he knocked and rang the adjacent doorbell, there was no answer. Attempting to circle round the home's rear entrance, Ballard was met with the locked gate. Over the fence, he could plainly see a doghouse sitting atop the meticulously manicured lawn, but no dog came out when he whistled. After about 10 minutes more of ringing the doorbell and knocking loudly, Ballard left the home as he had found it without entering. He then contacted Jennifer to inform her that Michael and Lisa did not appear to be home and that without probable cause he could not enter the home. Still concerned after the unsuccessful welfare check, Jennifer then reached out to Lisa's emergency contact, her stepdaughter Michelle. Michelle had already been planning to stop by the home later that day to check on her parents herself, but Jennifer's call encouraged her to take more immediate action. As the person in charge of her father's estate, Michelle had been given access to Michael's bank accounts and was able to view his recent transactions online. Wait, he's not dead? I mean, as far as legally is concerned. She just has access to his bank account? It's like if someone's handling my estate after I die, they don't have access to my bank account now. That'd be weird. There she found several large payments totaling over $10,000 that had been made over the weekend to a utility company, a university, and an apartment complex in Louisiana. After a bit more digging, she realized the apartment complex was Joel's apartment complex. Joel, mate, could you look more guilty? This is the most obvious crime ever, if this is what has happened. And the university was LSU, Joel's university. She quickly dialed the police to make another report. Later that day, Officer Ballard returned to the home alongside Officer Benjamin Gresham, Officer Jared Graves, and Detective Jeremy McCord of the KCSO. This time, after failing to make contact once again, Detective McCord authorized the other officers to begin looking for a way inside. First, Detective McCord and Officer Ballard scaled the backyard fence and approached the back door. Like the front door, it was locked by a deadbolt and its handle was also missing. There was a notable heavy odor emanating from inside that both McCord and Ballard thought smelled strongly of chemicals, possibly cleaning products. Probable cause. It's like, let's go inside. Even stranger, when Detective McCord placed his hands on the back door's glass to peer inside, he noted that it was exceptionally warm to the touch, as if he was placing his hand on the exterior glass of an oven door. Inside, in the hallway near the main entrance, he saw bagged groceries lining the walls that appeared as if they had been brought inside but never put away. Back at the front of the home, officers contacted the real estate company using the number on the lawn sign, hoping that the family's realtor would be able to point them toward a key hidden somewhere on the property for easy access. However, the realtor was no help. Yeah, I mean, if I'm the realtor and someone phones and is like, "Hi, yeah, I'm Officer John. I'm standing outside this property that you're appearing to sell. Do you have a spare key?" I'd be like, "No. How do I know you're Officer John?" Like, you're gonna have to come and get me if you really want me to believe that and show me some ID. I'm not telling you where the key is. I'm enormously skeptical. Like, I've seen enough of these scam things. I'm always like, no. When my bank phoned me the other day, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just following up about this, like, I don't know, some bull document or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to call you back." And they're like, "What? We can't just do this now?" And it's like, "Well, no, I can't give you any personal information. You just rang me. How do I know you're actually the bank?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Well, don't be upset. You're constantly emailing me to, like, do exactly this. Like, why are you annoyed now?" And so I phone them back and I wait in line and then I have to talk to someone else and they finally work out what's supposed to be going on. It's very annoying, but I'm very skeptical. I don't even answer the phone with my name. Like, people are like, "Hi, is this Simon?" And I'm like, "Who's speaking?" I don't want to give any away because everyone's getting scammed all the time.
But I'm not scamming the government, if that's what you're saying.
Your license plate says scamming.
No.
The realtor said that the key should be inside the lockbox affixed to the door, but there was no lockbox to be seen. Really, realtor? I would be disappointed if you were my realtor and that's what happens. Upon closer inspection of the door, the detective realized that the front door's deadbolt had tool marks on it, which indicated to him that the lock had likely been changed recently. After this, one of the officers suggested entering the home using a wireless click of the garage door that was found inside Lisa's unlocked car. When he pressed the button and the door began to rise, all four of them were hit with an uncomfortable wave of heat that reeked profoundly of chemicals and stung their eyes and noses. As they walked inside, that odor became even more pungent. At their feet, they noted several large red containers filled with gasoline. They walked past them, drawing their weapons and announcing their presence to anyone inside as they went. Just through the door, they discovered a real-life nightmare. In the kitchen, atop the counter, Joel and Lisa's wallets were found with their IDs and credit cards still inside. A box of open medical gloves sat beside them. On the floor below, 3 containers of bleach, a bottle of muriatic acid, an unopened container of baking soda, and a spray bottle filled with an unknown clear liquid were sitting alongside a partially used roll of paper towels and several rolls of trash bags. Off to the side, atop the kitchen stove, a large covered cooking pot was sitting on a burner, and that burner was switched on. In the sink beside it was the missing realtor's lockbox, found submerged in water. What the f*** is going on, and what are you cooking? As the officers moved deeper into the home, into the dining room, they discovered multiple rifles and handguns splayed out neatly across the dining room table. Some were loaded, some were not. There were boxes of ammunition and more rifle cases stacked neatly around the room's perimeter. What the f*** is going on? Down the hallway, the bags of groceries that the officers had noticed from outside the home can now be seen up close. They contained bacon, sausage, ice cream, and many other perishables that needed to be refrigerated or frozen, but had been left out and were now spoiled. The melted ice cream had seeped out of the paper carton onto the floor. Inside the living room, feces were smeared across the carpet, and as the officers progressed toward the stairwell, they could hear a dog scratching at a door from somewhere upstairs. The dog was alternating between barking and whimpering, and although officers did not immediately see the dog as they climbed the stairs, they did notice smears of blood streaked across the walls and banisters on either side of them. There was also blood splattered on a baby gate at the top of the staircase. What is going on? When they reached the upstairs landing, Detective McCoy found more dried blood on the carpet and a bucket filled with knives, power tools, and other sharp instruments. An empty bottle of lye drain cleaner and several empty 6-pound canisters of sewer line cleaner were beside them. Against the nearby wall, the set of tattered clothing that appeared to have been cut was laying beside a pair of scissors. From his position on the staircase landing, Detective McCord saw 2 small objects lying among even more blood down the hall, inside the home's exercise room. These objects were 2 severed human hands, propped up and leaning against one another, positioned as if they were in prayer. My lord, Joel, if this is you, you've lost your absolute marbles. Like, what has happened? Why is it like this? It's insane. It's like comic book insanity. With their weapons still ready, the officers then entered the nearby master bedroom. Inside, they discovered even more tools, more blood, and a roll of tarp lying atop the bed. At the foot of the bed, there were more chemicals, including food-grade hydrogen peroxide, another spray bottle, and another container of lye drain cleaner. Beside them, there was a space heater, a job site work light, extension cord, hammers, knives, and more. A large amount of safety equipment was seen as well, including a respirator, safety goggles, kitchen gloves, a long-sleeved t-shirt, long pants, and a 3M dust mask. On the dresser, a kitchen timer was set and counting down. Across the room, the closet door was standing open, and the jewelry box and nightstands had been raided. Where they now stood, at the foot of the bed, the chemical odor was almost unbearable. It had been getting progressively worse the deeper they ventured into the home, but by this point, the officers were becoming lightheaded. As they approached the master bedroom's ensuite bathroom, another wave of heat hit them in the face. The room was over 100 Fahrenheit, that's 38 degrees Celsius, primarily due to another space heater that was sitting inside the enclosed space, and the floor was covered wall-to-wall in clear plastic. In the hand sink, they saw rubber gloves, a kitchen knife, and a detached shower head. In the shower head's place, a garden hose had been attached to the home's water pipe. In the center of the floor, wedged between the shower and the cabinets, 2 large plastic totes were filled with liquid and bulging at the sides. Several dismembered arms and a torso could be seen floating in that liquid. As the dog continued to whimper behind one of the unopened doors deeper in the home, Detective McCord ordered the rest of the officers to turn and exit immediately. Up until the moment he saw the plastic totes, his primary concern had been that someone inside the home might still be alive and in need of assistance. But after their gruesome discovery, he knew that Michael and Lisa were dead. His primary objective at that point was to preserve the crime scene. Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, this is one of the most insane crime scenes we've ever talked about. As they exited the same way they entered, through the kitchen and out onto into the raised garage door, Officer Ballard lifted the lid of the pot that was cooking on the stove and discovered Lisa Guy's severed head simmering in boiling water. Ballard lowered the lid and then followed the rest of his team outside to wait for backup. Deconstructing the crime scene. The home at 11434 Golden View Lane has been called one of the most chaotic and disorganized crime scenes that the KCSO has ever seen. And what I just described to you in the previous section is just a small taste of what was found inside. Somehow, despite all the cleaning products spread throughout the home, there was blood splatter on nearly every single wall and carpet in upstairs halls, bedrooms, and bathrooms. As officers worked to process the scene, the sheer amount of evidence inside the home was overwhelming. As more officers arrived at the scene, Detective McCoy set out to clear the home and identify anyone who still may be inside. He had left several upstairs doors unopened during their initial check, and inside one of them, officers found Jake. He had been locked inside the home's laundry room and was hungry and dehydrated. After removing him from the home, the police began a multi-day exhaustive search that revealed much more than had been noticed upon first glance. First, after photographs and fingerprints were collected, the totes filled with human remains and the pot containing Lisa's head was transported to a forensics lab for further testing. It was a slow and gut-wrenching process that revealed the bodies had been separated crudely at the joints using a knife. Next, inside the upstairs hallway bathroom, a separate bathroom than the one containing the totes, they found and collected a pile of used first aid supplies. This included several disposable gloves and wet wipes, a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, multiple strips of used medical tape, antibiotic ointment, pain-relieving antibacterial spray, and a utility knife. All of these were splattered with reddish-brown blood and sitting on the countertop beside the sink. Beside them, there was also a set of keys to Lisa's Kia, a Samsung cell phone, and a receipt from the nearby Walmart that listed many of the aforementioned supplies as being purchased 2 days previously on November the 28th, 3:35 p.m. As far as fingerprints went, there were 2 identical prints on 2 separate boxes of opened gloves, another matching print on the packaging of wet wipes, and a distinct palm print on the countertop. This is the sloppiest. Why did you buy all of these cleaning supplies, Joel, if you're not going to clean up? And then you just leave the crime scene? Like, what? I'm assuming it's Joel, right? It's Joel. Like, that's what this whole episode is about, is what the title means. But, like, what are you doing? It sounds like, it really does sound like he's insane. Inside the exercise room near the end of the upstairs hallway, the room where the severed heads were discovered, police found a large bloodstain in the middle of the room that appeared to be where an attack had taken place. It was right beside an overturned Bowflex machine, and there were kitchen knives and more bloody clothes nearby. Well, I haven't heard about a Bowflex machine in a long time. Wasn't that some like 1990s exercise equipment? Bowflex. In the guest bedroom, blood was found smeared on the door frame leading inside, and just past the door, there were more clothes and towels soiled with blood, more plastic gloves, and a sheath for the utility knife found inside the hallway bathroom. Scattered around the room, police found the lids for the totes, prescription medicine prescribed to both Joel and Lisa sitting on the bookshelf, buckshot ammunition, a suitcase, a backpack, and a laptop. The laptop was sitting atop the bed, opened and switched on. To the police's disappointment, its hard drive was encrypted in a way that could not be bypassed. Obviously, the police suspected that the guest room's occupant, Joel, was involved in the crime in some way. However, they had not seen or heard from him since they arrived, and they were not sure if he was responsible for the massacre around them or if he was just another victim whose body had not yet been discovered. Judging by the number of cleaning products spread throughout the home, the police assumed that whoever was responsible had been in the middle of a desperate cleanup, but nobody had returned to finish the job. Officers had been watching the streets, waiting for a car to approach, but none ever did. Even more disappointing, the home security system, including its many cameras and recording hardware, had been removed and could not be located. However, as it turns out, they wouldn't need the footage, because another major piece of evidence was about to tie everything neatly together for them. The Book of Premeditation. Uh-oh, you're writing down your crimes, Joel. As officers continued to search his home, the backpack that was discovered inside the upstairs guest bedroom was photographed and transported to a local forensics lab so that its contents could be thoroughly analysed. Inside, investigators found a calculator, stationery, several college textbooks with the name Joel Guy Jr. written inside the cover, and the instruction manual for a residential gas water heater. With the exception of the water heater manual, these were all items the police expected to find inside a college student's backpack. However, there was also another thing, a small black notebook that had been purchased from a co-op in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Inside the notebook, there was a syllabus for Joel's 2016 fall semester at LSU, as well as dozens of handwritten notes that outlined how Joel had planned to kill his parents, including an entire murder plan written out from start to finish. Joel, this is the most amateur shit that I've ever seen in my life. Based on these notes, Joel had been planning his parents' murders for weeks, and the whole process had begun shortly after Michael and Lisa notified him of their intent to cut him off. Despite their belief that Joel had taken the news well, he'd been enraged by their decision, and he had chosen to hide his true feelings in an attempt to avoid drawing suspicion from those around him. After deciding to kill them, Joel set out to write down the perfect murder plan. Not a good idea, Joel. Not a good idea. You don't want to be writing that down. Don't write down your crimes.
Got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out. Take a look at this. Jesus Christ, that right there is...
First, he needed to choose a weapon. For simplicity's sake, considered using one of the many guns his father kept inside the home. However, he quickly decided against this since the home was in the middle of a residential neighborhood. This would not do because Joel needed plenty of time alone with the bodies after they were dead to complete the rest of his plan. So instead, he chose to kill them using a butcher's knife. This way, there'd be no bullet holes to deal with, no risk of missing his shot, no chance of misfire, and of course, no loud noises. He could sneak up behind them, cut their throats, and let them bleed out. Easy peasy. However, this plan was not foolproof either, because knives opened the door to several other potential problems that need to be considered. Using a knife meant having to be physically close to his mother and father at the time of the kill, which would give them an opportunity to overpower him, something that in the case of his father was a real concern. Joel would also have to attack and defend against both at the same time, which would be nearly impossible because, self-admittedly, he was not athletic in the slightest. Not wanting to introduce unnecessary risk into the equation, Joel decided that he would wait to make his move at a time when his mother was out of the home running errands. This way, he could focus all of his attention on his father and then kill his mother afterward. He also planned to create a distraction by sabotaging the kitchen's garbage disposal and attacking his father when his back was turned. This way, there would be little opportunity for his father to effectively fight back. After Michael was dead, Joel would then wait for his mother to return, ambush her as she entered the home, and then slit her throat as well. It was a chillingly cold plan, but the next part was even worse. After his parents were dead, Joel planned to place their bodies on a plastic-covered surface, dismember them at the joints, cut each piece into smaller pieces, and then place everything into large tubs of hydrochloric acid to be dissolved. With enough time, the acid would liquefy the body's soft tissues and weaken the bones. To speed up the process, Joel would introduce heat by setting the home's thermostat to high and placing several portable heaters inside the room where the bodies were being dissolved. After this, as the bodies soaked in the tubs of hydrochloric acid, Joel would establish an alibi for himself by programming his mother's cell phone to send an automated text message to his cell phone. He would then remove the home's security system, change the locks on the front door, drive back to his apartment in Baton Rouge, and wait for the text message to arrive. Then he would return to Knoxville the following day. This isn't a very good plan. This isn't a good plan at all. Back inside the home, whatever solids remained inside the totes would be crushed using a sledgehammer, ground up using a meat grinder, and then flushed down the toilet. He would then use drain and sewer cleaners to thoroughly flush the home's pipes, clean up any blood using hydrogen peroxide and bleach, and then dispose of his and their bloody clothing. He would wipe away any fingerprints within the home and dispose of the murder weapons, tool, and any cleaning supplies that may be covered in his DNA. Okay, it does sound like he did plan a thorough cleanup job. Like, there's many problems with this, the most obvious one, writing down your crimes, but it seems he got interrupted midway. And if he hadn't been interrupted midway, maybe he'd done a proper job of cleaning up, he'd have burned the plans for the murder in that little booklet thing, and he'd have done all this. But it's still going to be, like, mad suspicious, because they're going to be, like, looking for suspects. They immediately start with the family. They find out that you're a bit of a psycho, and that your parents just cut you off. You are going to be suspect number one, mate. And they're probably still going to find something. To further obfuscate any potentially forgotten evidence, Joel would connect a curling iron to a timer inside the kitchen, the room where the murders were intended to take place, lay the curling iron atop a pile of flammable material, douse the home in gasoline, and then exit through the front door. Okay, burning it to the ground is also extra. This is all very, very clean. When the timer went off, the curling iron would activate, quickly turning the home into an inferno within minutes with the aid of the accelerant. With everything done, Joel would then return to Louisiana and wait for a call from the police or his sisters so he could start playing the part of the grieving son. Alongside this plan, Joel wrote an itemized shopping list that included all the supplies that he would need, all of which were found inside the home. He even included what each item would be used for. Here is a sample. Please note that this list's order has been altered for clarity. Get killing knives, quiet, multiple. Get carving knives to make small pieces. Get sledgehammer, crush bones. Bring blender and food grinder, grind meat. Plastic sheeting for disposal process. Get bleach, denature proteins. Get plastic bag for denaturation process. Big sprayer, lie. Bro, don't write down your murder shopping. What are you doing? When making these purchases, Joel was careful not to group certain items together that would appear suspicious on the same transaction. Bro, you're writing down grind meat, crush bones. You sound like a fucking comic book villain.
Your attempts at humor bore me, man. Fortunately, I won't have to listen to them much longer.
He also spaced his purchases out over the course of several weeks in multiple different stores. Inside Joel's backpack and suitcase, they found receipts for many of the items. When paying for these supplies, Joel purposefully avoided using a credit or debit card, instead opting for cash at a self-checkout lane. He hoped this would reduce the likelihood that anyone would remember his face, although I'm not sure anyone could ever forget it. See picture below. Oh, he's a weird-looking chap, isn't he? Why is his face bigger on one side? That's weird. He's got a much bigger face on one side of his face. As for motive, Joel had conveniently compiled a list of Michael and Lisa's assets within the notebook in a manner so calculative that the police could not believe what they were reading. At the top of the page, Joel had written and underlined information pertaining to Lisa's $500,000 life insurance policy. Below the policy, he wrote, $500,000 would be all mine. And with him missing/dead, I get the whole thing. Obviously, him was Joel's father. Joel was killing his mother for the insurance money, but he was killing his father because if Michael was still alive, Joel would only receive $250,000. With both dead, Joel would receive the entire payout. For some reason, despite Joel having 3 half-sisters, he also assumed that he could pocket his father's entire 401k retirement plan, as well as the money from Michael and Lisa's joint savings account and investment portfolio. Based on the police's best guess, Joel likely assumed that he would be put in charge of handling Michael and Lisa's affairs after their disappearance because he was their only biological child together. Joel wasn't aware that, as we have discussed, Michael had already made Michelle the executor of his will. Joel also assumed that he would be the one to receive all his parents' personal property, including their vehicles. He noted that he wouldn't be able to keep either Lisa's Kia or Michael's SUV because they had been financed and were not yet fully paid off, but he did hope to keep his father's boat and antique truck, both of which were paid off. Joel, you money-hungry little psycho. He also listed the possibility of receiving a home insurance payout, that is, if his parents had fire protection listed on their policy, which Joel wasn't sure of. On Tuesday, October the 29th, 2016, Joel Michael Guy Jr. was arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the murders of Joel Michael Guy Sr. and Lisa Guy. Man, they have got you bang to rights. You are fucked. At the time of his arrest, he'd already been under surveillance by the FBI for an entire day, while investigators in Knoxville filed the necessary paperwork to make the arrest legal. Joel was apprehended while walking from his apartment's front door to his car. A meat grinder was discovered in the car's trunk. Oh, Joel, you sloppy-ass criminal. I thought you were supposed to be bright, Joel. You've done it half right, but you've left out a ton of important details, like, I don't know, finishing the job, Joel? Maybe it's because you've never had a job. Maybe that's why you're a bit sloppy. Joel was then transported to the local booking station, and his fingerprints and mugshot were taken. Yeah, and this is his mugshot with his weird half-big face. At the time he was processed, there were several chunk cuts and abrasions on the inside and outside of his hands, including a deep gash on his inner thumb and another on his right palm, both indicative of knife wounds. There was also scratches and bruises on his right arm near the elbow, and more on his back and knees. Putting the pieces together. Following his arrest, Joel was extradited back to Tennessee and placed in the custody of the KCSO to await his trial. Now that the crime scene was clear, the evidence catalogued, and their suspect was in custody, all the police needed to do was work with the prosecutor's office to determine what exactly had happened inside Michael and Lisa's home the prior weekend. Oh, he murdered them. He wrote a book about it. Thanks to the book of premeditation, this would not be too difficult. However, as evidenced by the fact that the home was still standing and the bodies had not yet been disposed of, Joel's plan had obviously gone off the rails at some point. So what exactly went wrong? Yo, if you're leaving a crime scene like this and then going to a different state, what the f*** are you doing, Joel? Did you just be like, it's fine, I'll come back to it later? Mate. Well, for starters, the police had interrupted Joel's plans by stumbling into the crime scene far sooner than he had expected. At the time of his arrest, Joel was still in the establishing an alibi phase of his plan and had not yet returned to the home to finish disposing of the bodies. Oh, I see. Really? He had driven back to Louisiana to wait for the automated text message from his mother's phone and to use his mother's credit card to pay for his next semester at college, his past due utility bills, and several months of prorated rent. Had Lisa's co-workers and Michael's daughters not been so concerned for their safety, Joel would have likely had time to finish what he started, and that's where he was headed at the time of his arrest. Although, even if he had been given more time, police were not confident that it would have helped, because based on the sheer amount of blood inside the home and the location of that blood, Joel's master plan had gone off the rails long before that. Michael had not been killed inside the kitchen, where Joel had intended. He'd been killed in the upstairs workout room, where the severed hands and overturned Bowflex machine was discovered. They reasoned this was likely because Joel had been unable to get his father to inspect the garbage disposal while his mother was away, and had been forced to improvise. Next, it appeared that, as Joel feared, Michael had fought back viciously during the attack. Over 40 stab wounds of varying depth were identified on Michael's body, and Joel's DNA was discovered underneath his fingernails, which evidenced a frantic struggle between the two. The blood and fingerprints discovered in the hallway bathroom on and around the used medical supplies were Joel's as well. He had purchased these supplies during an emergency trip to a nearby Walmart shortly after the attack, which police learned about via a receipt near the supplies. In the Walmart surveillance footage, police observed that Joel's hands were already crudely bandaged at the time he purchased the supplies in the self-checkout lane. They believed that Joel had been forced to grab the blade of the knife at one point to prevent it from being yanked from his hand during their struggle. At his trial in September 2020, Joel requested to represent himself. Bad idea. He was charged with 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of first-degree murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. Louisiana. They're going to have the death penalty, aren't they? Yeehaw. He entered a plea of not guilty. However, after filing a motion requesting to receive the death penalty should he be found guilty, his motion was denied, and he was told that he must have an attorney. I can only imagine what that poor, unfortunate public defender must have been thinking when he drew the shortest straw in legal history. I mean, yeah, but public defenders, they have to represent some truly awful people, because everyone's entitled to a defense, even a piece of like Joel. When the prosecution presented their case, they weren't worried about the trial's outcome. Even without the notebook, it would have been a slam dunk, as Joel's blood and DNA had been found all throughout the home, most consequentially on the blade and handle of the knife used to end his parents' lives. As a witness, the prosecution called Michelle to testify against her brother at trial. She told the jury how she had spotted the totes in the backseat of his car while unloading her family's laundry on Thanksgiving Day. These totes contained the supplies Joel had transported from Louisiana and were the same totes that would eventually be used to hold Michael and Lisa's bodies as they dissolved. To defend against the prosecution's mountain of indisputable evidence, Joel's lawyer did the only thing he could. He attempted to have everything found inside the home thrown out of evidence based on the assertion that it had all been collected illegally. According to the motion filed, Joel was an overnight guest inside his parents' home, and as such, had a legally recognized expectation of privacy. This meant that in order to legally search the home, police needed a documented reason for why they believed someone was in danger before stepping inside. The smell, the heat, the missing people. Since none of the evidence was visible from outside the home, the defense asserted that Detective McCoy and the 3 other officers who entered the home that day had not satisfied the legal requirement. Their search was nothing more than an illegal raid on a private residence. However, according to court documents, it was determined that, quote, to establish a legitimate expectation of privacy in a residence as an overnight guest, a defendant must demonstrate that he had permission to be there, and once that permission or consent has been revoked, a defendant is no longer a guest who has a legitimate expectation of privacy in the residence. It was a well-established fact that Joel was a guest inside his parents' home during Thanksgiving, which satisfied the first requirement. However, to prove that permission had not been revoked, the defense pointed to the many personal items Joel had left inside the home, such as his suitcase, his backpack, his laptop, and medication. These were things the defense claimed Joel either would not or could not permanently leave the home without. He was planning to return, thus he maintained his legally recognized status as an overnight guest. Truthfully, this approach was not the worst idea considering what they were up against. In fact, getting off on a technicality was likely the attorney's only viable strategy, but the judge disagreed and allowed the evidence to be presented to the jury anyway. Good. The weight of that is just so much more than like the oh no, they searched his home because they couldn't see it through the window. They could just smell it. It's like, come on now, let's go. From this point on, the legal battle was essentially a foregone conclusion. Joel's trial lasted only 5 days, and after closing arguments made on the 5th day, the jury deliberated for only 2 hours. They returned a guilty verdict for all counts. While Michael and Lisa's family read their impact statements before the sentencing, Joel sat silently, his face devoid of any shame or regret. While they spoke through sobs, Joel sat at the defense table, leaned back, taking sips of water from a plastic bottle and swishing the liquid around in his mouth. He listened disinterestedly, as if he were watching a rerun of a legal drama. Joel's request for the death penalty was not granted. He was given life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's a shame. I wouldn't be upset if they were like, stick a needle in his arm. Dismembered appendices. Number 1, the dog lived. And that's it. That's the only dismembered appendices. I'm glad the dog lived, but it's not great that the other people died, is it? Anyway, this has been an episode of The Casual Criminalist. Thank you for being here. If you enjoy the show, leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.